a messenger left the palace at Jerusalem, with an order sealed in wax and carried under guard. The words were plain and lethal. All male children 2 years old and under in Bethlehem and the surrounding area were to be killed. The command followed a burst of fury from a king who believed he had been deceived. Officers took the order, mustered men, and moved out along the road toward the hill town 5 miles south. In the city, Herod the Great, Rome's client king in Judea, had decided how to answer a rumor about a newborn king of the Jews. The rumor would not be allowed to live. The story that led to that order had started weeks earlier, when travelers from the east arrived in Jerusalem asking a question no ruler wants to hear. Where is the child born king of the Jews? They said they had seen a sign in the sky and had come to pay homage. The question shook the city. Herod summoned chief priests and scribes to learn where the Messiah was expected to be born. Their answer came from the prophet Micah, Bethlehem of Judea. Herod called the travelers secretly and pressed them for the timing of the sign. Then he sent them to Bethlehem with instructions to report back so he, too, could honor the child. It was calculated and cold. He needed a location, and he needed time. The travelers moved south and found the child with his mother. They offered gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and then, warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left by another route. That same night, Joseph, the child's guardian, received his own warning in a dream. Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt. He rose before dawn. The small family left Bethlehem behind and crossed into a land where Herod's warrant did not reach. Matthew's account is direct. They stayed there until Herod died. Back in Jerusalem, Herod waited for a report that never came. Days stretched long. The men from the east did not return. He understood what it meant. The king who had survived civil wars, palace plots, and the constant pressure of Roman oversight assumed a threat inside his borders and answered in the way he knew. He fixed the target zone to Bethlehem and its vicinity, set the age limit according to the time he had extracted from the travelers, and gave the order. The Gospel of Matthew does not describe how the order was carried out. No list of streets, no roll call of names, no scenes beyond the statement itself. It gives the age range, the place, and the result. It offers the image of Rachel weeping for her children, a line from Jeremiah used by Matthew to mark the grief. Later Christian tradition remembered the dead as the holy innocents and set a day in the calendar to honor them. The number is not recorded in the text. Later writers sometimes imagined thousands. Modern estimates, based on the likely size of Bethlehem in the 1st century, suggest a far smaller figure. The exact count remains unknown. Herod's decision sits squarely in the pattern of his rule. Outside the Gospel, historians know him through court intrigues and brutal choices preserved by Josephus, a king who built cities, palaces, and a vast temple complex, and who also eliminated rivals, real and imagined, even within his own family. He had 2 of his sons executed. He put his wife, Mariamne, to death. Augustus reportedly said it was safer to be Herod's pig than his son. The massacre in and around Bethlehem, whatever its scale, fits a record where perceived threats were met with preemptive violence. Joseph's path in Matthew runs in a narrow band between danger and obedience. He took the child and Mary into Egypt and waited. After Herod died, another dream told him it was safe to return. He headed for Judea, then learned that Herod's son Archelaus now ruled there. A final warning in a dream sent him north into Galilee, to a town called Nazareth. The movement is linear. Bethlehem, Egypt, return, detour to Galilee. It places the family's survival in a series of choices tied to warnings and to the political reality of who held power where. The record outside Matthew is sparse and has been debated ever since. Luke's gospel tells a different sequence, No mention of a massacre, a census instead, shepherds, and a presentation in the temple. Josephus, who catalogued many of Herod's crimes, does not include an entry on the killing of Bethlehem's children. That silence has led some to question whether it happened at all. Others answer that a small, localized act in a minor village could easily have slipped past a historian who focused on palace politics and affairs with wider impact. What remains certain is how Matthew frames the event: a calculated strike against a specific place and a specific age range, driven by a king's anger at being outmaneuvered. Bethlehem itself was small, more hamlet than city. Houses crowded the slope. Families shared walls and courtyards. The distance from Herod's palace to the village was a morning's march. Matthew's plain sentence, "He sent and killed," compresses everything that would have followed. Orders read aloud, squads sent door to door, questions asked about the ages of boys, and weeping in homes that did not see danger coming. The gospel gives no names and no lists. It holds to the fact of command and result, then turns back to its central subject: the child who was not there when the soldiers arrived. The timing of Herod's death provides the outer bounds of the story. He died not long after the travelers had come and gone, an end Josephus describes in painful detail: disease, fever, and a failed attempt to cling to power by arresting potential protesters. His kingdom was divided among his sons by Rome's decision: Archelaus over Judea, Antipas over Galilee and Perea, and Philip over the northern regions. Matthew's narrative slides through that political map with a few sentences and acts of guidance. Do not stay in Judea under Archelaus, go to Galilee instead. It reads like a family learning where the danger still was and taking the safer road. For centuries, artists and preachers treated the massacre as a scene to render and a warning to repeat. Ambition and fear at the top can turn into violence against the most vulnerable below. Liturgies named the children as martyrs. Poets wrote laments. The church set December 28th as the feast day in the West. In the East, dates differ, but the remembrance is similar. Across time, the details remained spare and the emphasis consistent: a king's order, a village without defense, and a flight that kept one child beyond reach. Modern readers come to the passage the way investigators approach a cold case, sorting what is written from what is assumed, weighing the silence of one source against the record of another, holding the cultural and political context close. Herod's known record of killing, the small size of the target, and the political logic of eliminating a potential claimant all sit on one side of the scale. The absence of independent confirmation sits on the other. Matthew's narrative does not strain to prove the case. It states it and moves on with the story he is telling, which is centered on the identity and preservation of the child. What never moves is the moral shape of the episode. A ruler who believed his throne was threatened used state force against children to remove the threat. A family carried their child into exile to survive. People in a small town grieved losses that no record preserved by name. The event is not dressed up with speeches or framed as a duel between equals. It is power exercising itself downward, and the resistance is a night journey on a road out of reach. If you walk the ridge south of Jerusalem today and look toward Bethlehem, the distance still feels short. The road that runs there is nothing like the track in the 1st century, but the geography has not changed. 5 miles between a king who decided and a village that suffered. The center of gravity in Matthew sits between those 2 points: a ruler's fear on one side and a family's obedience to a warning on the other. That is where the story stays, after debates about sources and numbers are set aside. Orders were given. Soldiers moved. A place remembered its dead without a ledger to count them. And a child survived, raised far from where a king expected to find him. Thank you for listening to Divine Crime. Subscribe for more true stories from the most dangerous book ever written.